welcome to another episode of the Fully Charged podcast, coming to you on the final relaxing late afternoon of Sunday here at Fully Charged Live North in Harrogate. And it has been a lovely but quite tiring weekend. I'm here with the wonderful, fabulous, always energetic Roger Atkins.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Can I do a harmonica intro?
Please do.
Thank you. You
You
feel
just
the
need
urge.
to do that. And
Yes.
what is lovely is it's probably not what people expect when they tune in to a podcast.
It's not what they expect, Rob, and it's not what they want.
no.
Let's be honest.
But anyway, have you had a good weekend? Has it been
Oh my word, it's so uplifting. I mean, I used to live in Yorkshire. My
Right.
wife's from Yorkshire.
Yes, she is,
She's
of
a
course.
Yorkshire
Yeah.
lass.
Yeah.
The boys were born up the road in Harrogate Hospital.
Right.
So it felt a little
Feel a
bit
bit
like
like
coming
a
home.
homecoming.
Yeah.
Right.
And a very different kind of fully charged. I've talked to a few people over the weekend, and it's a very different venue. It's spread out a lot more, but it still feels very, very kind of together, very cohesive.
Yeah.
And I really like it. I think if when you reflect on what you've done and seen this weekend, you do this again, I think that would be spot on. I think it's a great place to do
No,
it.
it's really good, isn't it? I've had amazing feedback from people here, and it's been thankfully lovely weather. So we've
Yes.
been very blessed with that. Bit of rain on the first day, but it was Yorkshire
It
rain.
happens.
It's very kind.
Yeah.
It's a very kind and gentle rain.
Indeed. It was a sprinkle.
It was a polite sprinkle. But what the panels that we've done this weekend have been amazing. The people who come up and speak here, it's been really wonderful. And the topics that we've covered have been fascinating and
Yes.
like way above my pay grade. I just sit there and listen and go, these people are amazing. What they're thinking about, little ideas. Let's do V2G just because that's a very
indeed.
potent
I love
topic.
that one on
But,
Friday.
you think,
Yep.
I can sort of get that. You've got a car and you put a wire in it and you can take electricity and you can boil your kettle with it. I got that far. But there's people who are thinking on the macro level of what this could be in the future.
They are. And do you know what, Rob? It is quite profound.
Yeah.
As we go on this journey towards renewable energy anyway, to come away from fossil fuels, I heard recently on another podcast, is
Yeah.
it all right to say
You
that
can mention that there are others.
There are other podcasts. Well, this was some pretty sophisticated people talking about economics and finance
Right.
and energy. And they were basically explaining that one of the key aspects of inflation has always been energy price, the volatility of energy price, has for decades and decades. And obviously, when you get rampant inflation, you get pretty bad things happen to economies, happen to individuals, happen to companies, happen to businesses, families, etc. So finding a way in which we can decouple ourselves from the global traditional energy mix and make it much more dynamic and much more organic, if you like, to give it another phrase, is actually going to help move away from rampant inflation.
Right.
Something like a quarter or a third, often, of the inflationary figures that we often hear about, circa 10% at the moment in the UK, is about energy costs.
It definitely is this time at the moment.
Well,
It
not
definitely
even
is.
just this spike,
But,
just generally speaking, over decades, not just currently because of what happened with Russia.
Yeah.
So this stuff is really significant, and I think watching that panel, the explanation of what is vehicle to grid, how it will work, what is bidirectional charging sort of per se, giving people these microgrids of their own home and their own car.
Yeah.
I've got to tell you, we had a conversation many years ago where I said cars, will shift away from having cars and using cars because they're dumb assets. Well, perhaps if they become more of a device that's part of our home, they're not so dumb. Well, they're not so dumb after all, like that, are they?
And it is that sort of. I can't believe that I spent so much of my life using cars without a second thought. I'm talking combustion cars years ago, and you just drive them and you don't think about it. And then as soon as it was an engineering professor said to me, well, of course, we leave our cars stuck out on the street for 94% of the time we own them. And I went, that's rubbish. That's not. No, I use my car much more than that. And then you go, oh, actually, no, I don't. And then you think that is the most, ludicrous use of a really expensive thing. Even if you're buying a second or third hand car, it's a lot of money, and you're just leaving it lying around doing nothing for 95% of the time you own it. It's crazy.
There isn't anything else like that.
No.
And in the reality, though, of building all of these batteries, taking all of these resources, we have to dig them up out of the ground.
Yeah.
We have to utilize them much better. They are very scarce. It's a very different dynamic to fossil fuels. Of course it is.
Yeah.
But I think we've got a golden opportunity here to develop and design a future which isn't just an alternative to what we've got today. It's just far better in how it works.
Yeah.
Not just the switch from fossil fuel to renewables, just the whole way in the economics work, the practicality of things work. It's the utilization of an extremely expensive asset, both to the individual and to the planet, that we need to use better.
Yeah. I just want to explain for people who are listening and can't see this episode. You might hear doors opening and shutting. We're actually on that.
I thought that was the police arriving.
Generally, when you and I talk, no, we're at the Great Wall Motors ORA stand, and we're in their lovely house here where there's lots of test drives that have been happening. But so there's people opening and closing doors, which you may be able to hear in the background. I'll just explain that. But we're very grateful to Great Wall for letting us sit in their lovely house.
Yes.
The other thing you were talking about, the stuff that you're going to go and see, because that is really because I sort of think I get around a bit. But I don't I get around a quarter of as much as you do. You go all over the place, meet these incredible people, so you're really up to speed on
but there's a reason for
that.
There's a reason for that. My wife asks me to be away for about 3 days of every week. Not quite sure why, but she seems happy that becomes the case. So, for example, over the next few weeks, I'm going to be with the wonderful Simon Moores and his team from Benchmark Mineral Intelligence.
Which is where we've got a lot of our information about the reality of how much lithium is there. Is there enough nickel?
Yeah, smart guys, smart people, smart team, boys and girls, amazing people. So I'm very lucky to have been invited to go to Washington, D.C.
Right.
So on the stage we're going to have Jigar Shah, who's the individual who's handing out, in effect, as good as the 400 billion of the Inflation Reduction Act, carefully, judiciously, in exactly the right sort of place. Right. We've got RJ Scaringe, who'll be there from Rivian, as you know, obviously. I think JB Struble will be there.
Wow.
So all the kind
should explain who he is, because he's got...
Redwood Materials. He is the co-founder of Tesla, and he really is one of... a lot of people arguably would say he is the kind of battery brains around a lot of what Tesla...
He's kind of why they work so well.
Absolutely.
It's fair to say.
So his company, Redwood Materials, are all about recycling.
Yeah.
And when people say, but hang on, how can you be recycling electric vehicle batteries? I've only just started making them.
Yeah.
But the point is, when you manufacture battery cells, there is something like typically anything between 10 and 20% waste, scrappage, stuff that isn't of the right standard.
Right. When you're actually making the batteries in the first place.
In the gigafactories themselves. So that's the feedstock for the recycling side of things.
Yeah.
So they've immediately got a lot of capability, a lot of resources that they need to recycle, on top of all the traditional battery things from cameras and phones and other electronic devices.
Amazing pictures I've seen from their facility where there's like massive bins that you need huge forklifts to lift, and they're full of flip phones from the 90s and early noughties. It's tons of electronics.
Exactly. So we've got to be in this recycling world. We've got to be in this sort of circular economic world. So I'm lucky enough to be in that environment, and Bob Galen will also be there. Bob Geilen, sorry, I never say his name right. So who is he? Well, he was the CTO at CATL for some time.
Right.
So, contemporary...
If not the biggest battery maker, very close to.
They make a third of the battery cells on the planet, which is astonishing.
Yeah.
So he is there. So it's a real lineup of people talking about the practicality of how is this going to work now in America?
Right.
How is it going to work and hopefully help Europe? And how do they work with the existing setup we've got in Asia, with the 5 big battery factories between principally China, in sort of rank order, China, South Korea and Japan.
Yeah.
So that's that. The following week, I'm over in Berlin with Marty Rimac and Nico Rosberg, and a few of your friends from Norway. So the Queen, the Queen of Norway is, don't you?
Yes. Christina
Booth, of course, the great Christina Booth.
She's
so I have a panel with amazing people on, mentioned a few of them, there's a few others. And then the following week, there's the Move event in London, Move Mobility, which is about, it's very similar to Fully Charged,
but
not as good.
Don't let them hear that.
No.
But it's different. It's more business
different.
to business. It's
Yeah,
slightly different.
yes.
It's not public facing,
Yeah.
as we like to say.
Yeah, it's a B2B type environment.
It's more
Rob.
of a B2B rather than a public facing.
Oh, yeah. You're more C, they're more B. It's just a letter of the alphabet. That's all it comes down to.
It is. I wouldn't give any value judgment on any of it.
No, not
And
half.
now,
mate.
let's rock with Bachman Turner Overdrive.
Oh, not half.
So those two topics I think are really important. Vehicle to grid, one, and and recycling materials in general, but battery recycling.
Without a doubt.
And that, we've recently done an episode about Apple and how Apple recycle things. And there was quite a lot of kickback on that Apple don't build phones that you can repair. And when you actually look at the statistics, the number of people who own an Apple iPhone, and they have sold 2.2 billion.
Oh, easily. If
I
no,
think,
a lot
something
more
like
than
that.
that.
Is it more than that?
They?
Anyway,
yeah,
it's
there
a
was
lot.
a load more.
It's billions.
Yeah.
The statistical amount of people who want to repair their phone is quite low. Let's just leave that there. But it should be. I think they should be repairable, and I think you should be able to flip open the back and put a different battery in. I think all those things.
You
I
used to
totally
have a
agree.
phone I used to have a phone that could do that.
Yeah,
I think it was HTC or something.
Yeah.
I can't remember. And you could
If
just
your
slide the
battery
phone
went-
on the
If your
back.
battery went down, you could put another battery
Do you
in.
know, that was battery swap.
Yes.
So we've got battery. So we've now got more battery swapping going on with cars than we have with mobile phones.
Yeah.
What's going on?
What is happening with the world? That's
It's
what I
all
wanna
about
know.
arse about face. That's what's going
But
on.
the thing is, my argument is, at the end of life, which
Yes.
all technology eventually, even an old saucepan I've got that I've re-welded the handle on, is now dead. I've burnt it out so many times.
Rob,
it's the end of the road for that saucepan.
It is, but can I just please,
Yeah.
please, we're two gentlemen of a certain age. Don't talk about end of life. Can we not talk about that? 'Cause it's been on my mind a bit of
It's
late.
getting closer.
Yeah, I woke up the other morning. I thought someone had run me over in the night. I thought, what's going on? It was.
It was just a normal morning.
It was.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
Sorry.
what I'm saying is they are now recycling. But one of the, I thought, fascinating things that they told us then was that by 2025, they will have recycled enough of so they're only recycling their phones. So they know exactly what's in them. They
Yep.
know all the materials in them. By 2025, they will use literally zero freshly mined cobalt in their products. All of it will be from recycled iPhones. That they would have taken the cobalt out. My argument always is, I don't mind how clean your diesel is. I don't mind how good your catalytic converters and your AdBlue is. I want to see a gallon of recycled diesel. You burn it once, try and burn it again, because you can make new stuff out of old stuff, which we've got to do with all this stuff.
There's no doubt about it. And on that note, can you show people books on a podcast?
Well, we
Does that
exactly
work?
mentioned them, and some people will be able to see them on that camera.
Oh, I
there.
see. Look, there's a book.
It's called Volt Rush by Henry Sanderson.
Yeah, Henry Sanderson's, a smart guy. He
Right.
was, I think, commodities or minerals expert at the Financial Times for a while. I think that's where it was.
Right.
And this book came out last year. And what it does basically is chronicles, it says the winners and losers in the race to go green.
Right.
So it's all about the mining and mineral side of things. So absolutely talks about recycling,
Right.
to the point we've just discussed. It also talks about something which maybe we could briefly allude to, but it's not something people really want to hear about, which
Right.
is mining the ocean floor.
Yes. Oh, he does talk about that.
Yeah,
in
he
there.
absolutely
Okay.
does. So there's a thing called the law of the sea, because when you think about where are we with mining at the moment,
Yeah.
there are countries, there are land rights, there are all sorts of things in which how mining works, who owns this bit, who's
Yeah.
got the rights to do that bit. But when it comes to the sea, that's a little bit harder, isn't it? You think of the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, all the seas and oceans of the world. Who owns them? Whose is that?
That's more than like 12 or 15 miles offshore.
Well,
It's kind of international waters.
Well, indeed, international. So, what does that mean, international waters?
Yeah.
So, one of the challenges that might occur is that we don't have enough capability to get the stuff out of what would you call it, terrestrial mining,
Right.
and that then we're kind of almost forced to, although we don't want to mine the ocean floor, because that's not digging up the ocean seabed. That's actually harvesting, believe it or not, nodules. They're called nodules off the ocean floor.
I have one nodule
scooping them up.
in my office. Yeah, they
You
sent
got-
me a
you've got a
nodule.
nodule. Where did you get that one?
I interviewed a man, and I now, of course, can't remember his name, who is ocean floor mining maximalist, Australian
Right.
man, amazing guy.
What did you think of it then, Rob?
Well,
I'm
I'm troubled by it, and I'm troubled by it partly because Helen Chesky, who is
Yeah.
sadly not with us this weekend, she's been unwell, but who's an amazing scientist and a really specialist in terms of oceans. I'm reading her book at the moment, which is absolutely brilliant, and she says, you can't there isn't like nothing down there, nothing living down there. We don't know what's down there because we're talking seriously deep.
Yeah,
this is not puddle deep.
Yeah.
This is thousands and thousands,
Yeah,
tens
it's not
of thousands
paddling.
of meters.
Yep.
But there are on that seabed, which is basically looks like the desert. It's just flat sand, effectively. Yep. But there's all these dark nodules that are about the size of. There's no other word for it. A poo. A dog poo.
So. A
squashed dog poo.
Yeah, but how big a dog? I've got a big dog. Some people have got a Chihuahua.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're talking about dog
terrier.
poo, let's give people a frame of reference they can understand.
An average Labrador, black Labrador that's had a bit of leftover Christmas dinner. First thing in the morning, you've got the plastic bag.
Oh yeah.
You don't want to do it, but you've got to.
Yeah. So we're definitely talking solid, not a liquid one.
Oh, solid.
Yeah. Do you know what? If someone is listening to this podcast, having their breakfast, or eating a meal, they've now switched off.
They've switched off, and I don't blame them. But I was trying to think of something that was nearly the same size, like a croissant. Too big.
Trying to think of something of a certain size, and the only thing you could think of was a turd.
Well, it's dark and it's sort of flattened. I don't know what to call it. Right. Anyway, but what those things are incredibly concentrated bits of nickel, copper, cadmium, cobalt, all these metals. And I don't know that I have had it explained how they got there. They basically kind of come out of volcanoes 100 million years ago, wobbled down the ground and gradually got squashed together in the water. And I don't know how they got there.
Yeah.
But there's thousands, millions of tons of them.
I know.
If you did scoop them up, you wouldn't have to do all the breaking up rock and refining it. They're concentrated.
But this is the worry that it becomes a compelling case.
Yeah,
I know
very compelling.
Because alternatively, we are digging up huge parts of Indonesia for the copper. We are doing all sorts of things which, we kind of. This is a debate that's worth having, I think, not necessarily right now, but in that a lot of what has to happen to make far better things happen, i.e. tackle climate change, isn't necessarily wholly palatable.
No.
We can't pretend and be prissy about it and say, oh, we're not going to burn stuff, we're going to move away from oil and coal and gas, and everything in the garden's going to be rosy to get there.
No,
it's not. We've got to be realistic and honest with people because, as I've heard you say, and I know people often now say, the way the world works is by things that are either grown or dug up.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest about it all and explain it in a credible, realistic way, and then find the lesser of all the evils, whatever they might be, to get it done.
I mean, in fact, that mining engineer, whatever his name is, and I'm so ashamed I can't remember it, and I apologise to him in case he's listening, because he was fascinating, but one of the beautiful nuggets he said, in a very Australian way, is, listen, mate, by 2050 we've got to stop digging up. That was his sort of subtext, that we have to do. So he was saying, we have to recycle everything, plus all the stuff we've thrown away in the past. And I mean, that was a thing I experienced, which kind of had some influence on this, was spending 10 years of my life in scrapyards, where you're surrounded by millions and sometimes hundreds of millions of tons of discarded material. A lot of that was being recycled eventually, but when you're standing with, where as far as you can see, particularly in America, literally as far as I could see, were cars piled up on each other for thousands of acres.
Can I ask you something then? Because on and off I've known you for some time, but what I don't know is, what is the origin of Scrap Heap Challenge then? Because when you think about it, when you just frame it in the way that you have there, way ahead of its time in advocating and illustrating what you can do from recycling. How did that happen?
It was, because it wasn't my idea, I wish I could lay claim to it. It was Apollo 13, so the movie Apollo 13. So Kathy Rogers, who was the original producer, my co-presenter for 4 years, and the originator of it, went to see Apollo 13, said, hang on a minute, because in that sequence, there's the astronauts in space.
Yes.
Their oxygen scrubbers broken. They can't. They're going to suffocate. They're going to die. And the engineers on Earth know exactly what they've got in that capsule. They use all those things. Literally, it was toilet roll, cardboard tubes out of toilet rolls.
Yes.
They repurposed them. They had gaffer tape. They had bits of plastic bags from food wrappings, and they made an oxygen scrubber somehow. And that's featured in the film. And so her idea was that you would have 3 people who don't know how to make things on the ground, and there's a specialist up a crane tower who can talk to them on a walkie-talkie going, see that fridge door, take that off, cut it in half, make that into the front, da-da-da. And that was the original idea, was that. And we, through hours and hours of discussion and meetings and pitches, it got to where it was, where you had effectively a specialist there were a team of 4 people, one of whom was a specialist in the area of technology they were going to do, and the other people were not, had no idea, never, like, you've got to build a boat. Well, I've only ever built cars. Well, that's why we want you to build a boat.
God,
So
Rob,
that was
Robert,
its origin.
That is amazing. I asked the question because I didn't know.
Right.
And it's always been in my mind that, a good analogy for where we are as humanity at the moment, 8 billion people on the planet Earth trying to tackle climate change, is a bit like those 3 astronauts on Apollo 13.
Yeah. How do we fix this?
There's a seemingly insurmountable challenge. Yeah. The only way to deal with it is what you've got around you. And you need to make that happen. And that happened because of the astonishing teamwork and leadership of Gene Kranz in the Apollo mission. I mean, I love Apollo. I love all of that. But to hear you explain that was the origin of Scrap Heap Challenge, which is no doubt, is in your DNA of everything that you do here now. Do you know, I love it when these things connect up. They are like the dots that connect up in all of our lives. Where the things that we do, sometimes you're not aware of its value at the time, but then subsequently it becomes...
you can't see it when it's happening. I mean, for example, when we were making Scrap Heap Challenge / Junkyard Wars, as it was known in America, in the United States, I was meeting these people that would explain to me that they're working on battery management systems, and I cannot tell you how weird and obscure that sounded. I went, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or we're doing electric drive trains, which just sounded so naff. I was going, why would you bother with that? What's wrong?
Yeah.
There's a car over there with a V8. And a supercharger. It's fantastic. That's a car, not this. You're talking about vacuum cleaners. I was really not impressed. But I didn't realise that was all those people coming out of Silicon Valley. They were all coming out of the computer industry, not the car industry. And that was where the origins of this transition really came from.
It does, and thinking again of where you were at that time, and I know where Quentin Wilson was at that time, because there's a famous episode of Top Gear where Quentin reviews the EV1, and he does a piece to camera at the end, and he actually says, in the future, perhaps a company like Volkswagen could become Volkswagen.
You're kidding. I didn't know he said that. Wow. He
did say that. And then years later, I started saying it and pretended it was my idea. Oh, God, I've told everyone now. Oh, no. That was a faux pas. But no, the point there, I think, was that, around that time, you had people like J.B. Struble looking at all sorts of things. Elon then comes along. All this connectivity of different people who come together at a certain point in time, and these ideas and the inspirations coalesce to come into the point now. And look at what Fully Charged is today now out of all of that.
Unbelievable.
To come to this event in Yorkshire, I had no idea. I mean, I guess you've sold tickets, so you must have known there were going to be a lot of people.
Yeah.
But to talk with people and mix and mingle with people and realise there's so many kindred spirits of what you and the team are doing. It must be so encouraging for you now. You must feel...
It does. I'm exhausted now, but it does make you realise that it is worth doing, because sometimes... Because when you're doing... we put out a video and it gets so many thousand views or whatever, it doesn't necessarily... It's not the same. It's you and I both come out of a live performing background.
Yes.
You see it, you've got an audience in front of you, you go, ha, da, 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 and they don't laugh when you thought that was the most brilliant joke. You get that. But also when they do laugh and they clap, you get that instant feedback, which you don't with TV and with video and all that stuff. So this is kind of like meeting our audience in a sense. I mean, it's only a small part of our audience, but it is a fascinating thing. And I think one of the key things, and I'm looking around right now, at the sort of last remaining people here, I've been talking about this a lot this weekend. Our video audience is hugely male skewed. It's mostly men that watch Fully Charged, that will listen to this podcast. It's a very heavily skewed. But you come here, it's not
the
50-50, but it's 60-40. There's a lot of women, and there's a lot of women looking at the cars and coming and looking at the technology in the home stuff. And I think, well, how have they got here? Because they don't watch the show.
But it's the kids as well. I mean,
and the kids bring
this
them,
weekend when you see so many families here and children, and a lot of those children, even quite young, 6, 7, 8, 9, they're well informed.
Yes,
they know this stuff.
Yeah.
Just like you and I might have done when we were kids, kind of hankered after an E-Type Jaguar or looked at. They're now looking at Teslas. They're now looking at Rivian. They've leapfrogged. Everything to do with combustion cars. They're of that generation now. So I think that stuff's particularly significant. But Rob, one thing we haven't mentioned, and I'm surprised you haven't, and I will as a consumer, if you like, getting to the point of 1 million subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
Seriously, mate, and you said you get a few thousand people watch videos. No, you don't. You get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands watching
millions,
them.
yes, okay.
And yeah, indeed. And
Yeah.
and that does over time.
Yeah,
Of course, it's going to have it's exponential, because it's a bit like, I have a few followers on LinkedIn, but then those followers, if they read things or copy something, their people see it. So the exponentiality of what you're doing and the audience you're building is significant, because it feeds into what people want their politicians to do.
Yeah.
So, the local politician in Harrogate, he's going to get a lot of people now in the future saying, what are you doing about electric vehicles? What are you doing about charging? What are you doing about energy stuff? So it all coalesces.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. No, it is, I don't want to, I mean, all of us are really proud, and we should be, the team, Fully Charged, about getting a million, going past the million mark.
Yes.
It doesn't really mean, it actually means something within YouTube, because they then deal with you slightly differently.
I think I've got 847 followers on my YouTube channel. I don't laugh. No, don't laugh. That's like...
It's not fair to tell me that and tell me not to laugh. That's very cruel.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping to get to 1,000 before I'm
you've got a
dead.
huge following on LinkedIn.
Well, a number of people. Look, but is the only thing I focus on. It's, to be honest, Rob, it's my life. You're laughing again. Right. Look, can I tell you a very sad thing that happened once?
Yeah,
just as a quick anecdote. So I'm in the office in the garden, and I am busy, truly am busy.
Yeah.
And the phone pings, and Sue, my wife, has sent me a text message. I thought, okay, I'll look at that in a bit because I'm busy. And then a bit of time elapsed. Then there was a WhatsApp message, pinged again. And it was from Sarah. I'm just really busy on the computer. And then there's a ping on LinkedIn, and it was like somebody sent me, a connection request. So I had opened it, and it was from Sue. So
from your wife?
Yeah, I thought I'll accept, because I know her. You've got to know people. So I pressed accept, and then she sent me a message. She said, "You sad bastard," and that was it. That's all it was. And then when I went in, she said, "So hang on, you ignore my text message, you ignore my WhatsApp, and then on LinkedIn, because I connect with you, you talk to me. How sad are you?" Yeah, and what could I say? Bang to rights, Rob.
Yeah,
Bang to rights.
I'm there with you. I'm there with you all the way.
Yeah. Well, it's just...
I actually just get. I've been in the office, and my phone has pinged, and it's an emoji which is just a teacup, and that's it. There's not even any, which is I want tea. Can you come in and make me some?
Yeah. Do you know what there isn't? And there are lots of things in this world that we really do need to have very urgently, etc. But there isn't a biscuit emoji, is there, on WhatsApp?
Oh, is there not?
No, there isn't. I had a look the other day. There isn't one. Because Sue sent me a message saying, do you want a cup of tea?
Right.
And I was looking to send back a message with
biscuit.
three biscuit symbols.
Right. Yeah.
No biscuits.
No biscuits. What we also need is a deep sea nodule, so we can say it's like the deep sea nodule emoji on LinkedIn. That would help, rather than me saying it like a dog poo. That would really...
That's going to haunt you now, quite frankly. Anyway, are we...
Sorry, Roger, there is.
There is one.
It was under brownie, under cookie.
Cookie! Oh, my God.
Oh, my God, it's a cookie.
How did I miss that?
Yeah, because you went for a biscuit.
Oh,
no one knows what a biscuit
well, that's because I'm English. You know, cookie. It's an American thing, a cookie. Yeah.
Now we've lost the thread 100%.
Well, it's your fault.
Tell me a bit more about the Volt Rush, because I really want to read this. I'm going to get this.
So basically, what it explains is how we got to this point. It talks about how China...
And it does talk about the history of China.
Indeed it does.
Right.
So it basically explains how they realised that they couldn't catch the rest of the world up with internal combustion engines. Right. They were always doing an iteration, normally called Euro compliance, Euro 4 standard, Euro 5 standard, that was 1 or 2 behind Europe. They were never going to catch up. Right. They were always also ran. They felt inferior, and any nation wants to not feel inferior, wants to feel at least equal, if not superior. Yeah. So they concluded that as part of the strategy called Made in China 2025, they would have this thing called new energy vehicles.
Right.
Which are electric vehicles, but call them new energy vehicles because they want to feed them from renewable energy.
Right.
In the short term, they're building coal-fired power stations, yada, yada.
But they're also installing more renewables than anyone else on the planet.
Yeah, they are. And I could flip around it quite easily, and some people do, the fact that as much as we can be paranoid and other negative terms about China, China's the only one you could argue that's taken seriously climate change, has started to build a huge resource of renewable energy, gone down the route of electric vehicles, done many of these things that the West hasn't done or has done incredibly slowly.
Yeah.
You know, the whole way in which solar is now such a superior proposition for energy is because of China.
Yeah.
And so on the one hand, we can demonize it and people can find a justification to do that. But the other side of the coin is to say they've actually made things happen faster than anyone else was going to. So when it comes to the automotive industry now, when it comes to this book, talking about the leadership they've got in mining, mineral processing, etc., our job now is to reconcile what that is, to look at how we can not necessarily cut and paste what they've done, is discover what we're really good at, get good at it fast again, because we're brilliant in Europe and America at innovation, at technology.
Yeah.
You know, America led the space race with the Apollo mission. You know, lots of things have happened in the UK. So I think what the book does is it's a kind of reality check for us on the one hand, which is a bit sobering, but it also gives hope in that there are things that we should now be able to get on with and get on with them fast. And I'm not going to get political, tempting as it is.
Yeah.
Let's just think about the great engineers, the great people, the great investors, the people that draw these things together and make them happen.
I mean, I think it's fair to say, because it's bipartisan, cross-party, whatever the hell you want to call it, having an industrial strategy in this country would be an advantage. It's been something that's been talked about for the last 10 years, and we don't have one.
Yes.
And we kind of desperately need one. And and that would address so many of the issues about why aren't we making batteries in
Well,
this
think
country?
about it, Rob. We
developed the bloody batteries in this country originally.
Well,
That's what's so frustrating.
We had a thing called the Industrial Revolution.
I remember it well.
Do you?
We
Yes.
both do.
Well,
I used to wear wooden clogs on my way to the mill.
Well, honestly, the reason why I cough a lot is because going up and down chimneys, you can't, like,
When
you're
you're a
bound to
kid.
breathe some of it in. I know, I said to my mum and dad, I'm not doing that anymore. They said, you're going to sleep right now, otherwise you won't get to lick the pavement tomorrow. So, all of that stuff. But the point in this is, and it's pretty significant, the world is changing.
Yeah.
There are kind of almost, what can I put it? They're like tectonic plates, political and commercial and strategic
And
tectonic
technological,
plates
yeah.
that are clashing into each other between Asia and Europe and America. We see it now with the Inflation Reduction Act. We've seen it with the trillions that the Chinese have put together for their revolution. And now we're a little bit piggy in the middle in Europe. But you know, hope springs eternal. We've always got to have that sense of, well, what is it that we can do? And again, thinking of events like Fully Charged and other things I'm lucky and you're lucky to go to, you can feel the energy in the room and you know there's that talent and capability. And the best hope for me is how young people perceive the world.
Yes.
In a way in which they want to make a difference and they want to get on with it now.
Yeah.
So, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yes, slightly optimistic. And I think the other thing is that, because I always doubt my own perceptions of how things are changing, and I've been saying for probably, I don't know what, not that long, but let's say the last 5 years, I really think the cars coming out of China are going to have a big impact.
Yes, they
and
are.
I've sort of felt like, well, I feel like that, but I bet they know better. People who run Mercedes and BMW and Audi, they know better because they're proper and they're grown-ups and they run these companies. But hearing, particularly from Elliot, from Elliot Richards in China, he was at the Shanghai Motor Show following the bosses of BMW and Audi and Mercedes around, and he said they were ashen-faced and holding their heads
I think it's
in
a
their
tipping
hands
point.
when they looked at the technology that the Chinese had developed, and they weren't aware of it. You think, how could you be in the business you're in and not know about this? It's
Well, I mean, not
staggering.
giving everyone excuses for everything, but if you think about it, the last 3 years we've had obviously the pandemic and other things. So in a way, there was a kind of, China's only properly opened up the last few months, in truth.
Yeah.
So for 3 years we hadn't been seeing what they were doing.
Yeah, but they were busy.
And it's
That's
been
what we know.
exponential.
Yeah.
But again, I think another way of looking at where we go forward and make things positive is to work how we work with China, not against China.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you feel this sometimes. Do you ever feel slightly guilty that you're advocating and supporting Chinese products when you're a European with your own domestic things, that you feel a little bit torn by that?
Yeah.
But what you're doing, or what I feel I'm doing, if I'm saying I like BYD or I like this or I like that, is just giving people the facts, giving people the news.
Yeah.
You're not an OEM. It's not your job to make cars. It's your job to give people...
To communicate what's going on.
Exactly. And then inspire people and help people to progress in whatever way they can.
Yeah.
But what do we know?
I know, it feels fitting that we're talking about it here on on the stand run by Great Wall Motors, which is a Chinese company, which is making really good. Look at those cars; they're really good.
They are. Everyone knows what you do. Open the doors, slam the doors, listen to the sound, see
Yeah,
what it looks like,
nice.
sit inside, the fit and finish, the feel,
Brilliant.
and all the rest of it.
Lovely
and they drive well
that
as
is,
well. Yeah.
I drove one in Australia. I've not driven one here, actually. I only drove one. I have driven one here. Thank you. I have driven one here. What did I drive? Atto 3. Completely different car. Don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
I drove the Aura Funky Cat here in the UK.
Nice.
Did you hear about my slight faux pas on a podcast where I confused Munro, the fabulous Scottish four-wheel drive, amazing off-road ability.
With Sandy
vehicle.
Munro?
Not with Sandy Munro,
Okay.
no. With McMurtry, the incredibly fast, suck itself down onto
right.
the ground car. Got them around the wrong way.
Oh, that's a point. We should mention that. So
Which
the
is here.
McMurtry, yeah, it was
McMurtry's here,
McMurtry was
Yeah.
here. I remember speaking to who's the Formula One driver who did it?
Who drove it?
Yeah.
Yes, I met him.
He drove it in 39 seconds up the hill
Up the
climb.
hill at Goodwood.
I talked briefly
And
to
a
him.
Formula One car takes like 1 minute 15.
Yeah.
It's like insanely
Yeah,
fast.
I spoke to him briefly. I shoved a camera in his face. It was at the RAC Club. They won an award. And I said, so you did it in 39 seconds. Could you have gone any faster? and he looked around. He went like this. He went, don't tell anyone, but yeah.
Yes, yeah,
I said,
he said to
thanks.
me, you couldn't
Can I
have
use that? No, he's perfectly happy saying he can do that because, but oh my word, you watch it and you think this is speeded up.
It's been speeded
Someone's
up. It's
edited
fake,
it
yeah.
and speeded it up slightly because
Yeah.
it's so quick.
Yeah.
Fully electric, small, lightweight,
Yeah.
incredibly aerodynamic, extraordinary piece of
Yeah.
British
I know.
technology.
That's why I wanted to mention it. Yeah.
Yep.
And the Munro is like, stunning. You know,
There you are. Yeah,
incredible stuff there.
indeed.
Yeah. I don't know what else we can say, Roger, other than we can.
We're going to
just-
apologise.
We
for having gone
I think
on
we
for
should
ages.
apologise for all the mistakes we made and all the
Yes.
bad things we said in our
Yes.
lives, and they are
Harmonica,
many.
maybe?
Yeah, I think you could do a little bit harmonica. Why don't you give us a little outro?
Okay.
I'll thank people for
Yep.
listening. If they've got this far, they've done well.
They have.
Thank them for listening. Inform them that there are other live shows coming up later in the year, and they can subscribe to the Fully Charged podcast. Although, as you have said,
Join the
there are-
millions.
Well, join the million, but there are other podcasts available that are
Apparently.
equally almost as fascinating.
Apparently.
And on that note.
I'm so sad we're leaving. We've really got to go. But please do remember to watch the Fully Charged show.
Brilliant. Thank you. That was very good.